Good. We continue in this room with the next project with the beautiful name Sunshine. We have two gentlemen here from the company F3. It's a fund management company. We have here Claudio Rochas and Nicolas Stanchov. And the project is just a quick introduction to the project. The project focusing on the removal of technical, financial, and legal barriers to renovate multifamily buildings on a large scale. So that's really interesting because, as we know, private buildings and particularly housing is very difficult for energy performance contracting projects. So they try to deliver a deep renovation of 80 multifamily residential buildings through energy performance contracting. The consortium will develop a forfeiting fund that's also very interesting, which will purchase receivables from future energy savings from the ESCOs to sort of release their balance sheets. We heard today not LIMBY, it's LOMBA. NOMBA, not on my balance. NOMBA, not on my balance. So the floor is yours, and I'm looking forward to this interesting discussion.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you, the organizer, to give us the possibility to present our project. We just started in March, and it's for us a fantastic opportunity for networking also. I'm Claudio Rocha, and I will share this presentation with my colleague Nicolas Stanchov. The coordinator of the project is Riga Technical University, and Marika is as well here on the floor. In this presentation, just a quick outline, we will look at the problem we've seen in Latvia, but also in Eastern Europe. A few years ago, an ESCO company started to work in Latvia. It's called Renesco. Tried to address this problem. We'll show you. There were a lot of barriers in doing this one. And based on these barriers, we try to put together with Project Sunshine to try to indeed help the market to further develop. And I think an important aspect is what we call a platform, which try to fill a gap between the projects, the developer, and the financing of them.
And the important thing there is that what was said today, at the beginning there was a champion. This company was started by people who really believed in what they were doing, in particular one person, Eric Berman, who's not with us today, but who really pushed forward this concept and was able, didn't just try, but actually did 15 buildings, which we'll tell you more about. So I think we need to close.
So today I also heard that yes, energy efficiency is probably not the most attractive things to think. I mean, when particularly in the residential, in the public sector. I mean, myself also, I'm working now more than 15 years on energy efficiency, but I rarely wake up in the morning and say, wow, energy efficiency today is my day. I hold it off. I think, well, where my kids will go to school. I'm thinking to this sort of question. And if I put it on technical terms, will they have a good enough air exchange in their school? So will they have a good lighting level? Another problem I'm thinking is where they will live. We all need a roof where to live. And after 15 years living in Eastern Europe and traveling not only in Latvia, but from here down to Russia and to Kazakhstan, these are the sort of housing where people are living. We have about 55 million square meters of these buildings in Latvia alone. The number is too big if I put this down from Latvia to Kazakhstan, even to remember, just to put it a number, but we're talking about millions and millions of square meters of housing which are in this situation. These pictures are from Latvia, but look, I took this in Kiev a few days ago. This is in Bucharest, this is in Nizhny Novgorod. These are how today they start to fix balconies. This again is in Latvia. Last year, one roof fell down in one of these buildings. So the situation, and these are the buildings where millions of people are currently living, and this is the problem I'm more concerned when I wake up in the morning, more than energy efficiency.
It's not lower income housing, by the way, as it is in Western Europe. There are people of every background living in these buildings. In fact, in many of these buildings, it's doctors, lawyers, because they got priority when these buildings were new. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And well, they have all one thing in common. This building, they consume a lot of energy. This for sure. They were built in a period where the energy was basically almost a free commodity, and therefore the energy efficiency was not certainly something they keep in mind, and they had to be built quite quickly so that the rural community could move to cities and to be concentrated in a planned economy. So we have a lot of this building, and to put it down in two charts, this is from the EOSTAT survey made in 2012. We see from one side is the house deprivation. What it means what is the condition of the housing, in what condition are the roof, the heating system, the water system, the sanitary system. And we see the countries where today I'm currently living, Latvia, we have a high level of housing deprivation. It means that the building stocks where people are living is basically reaching a level in which must be repaired. If you don't repair it, then you will have to replace it. This is the level is reaching. On the other hand, if we look at the overcrowding rate, again, if we see these numbers, it means that there are not enough housing. So there we have two very bad combination. From one side,
Yeah, and when Claudio finishes it, this is something that's not an East European problem. This is your problem in Western Europe. Because either I don't like where I'm living because it's falling apart, or I'm living with mom, dad, and grandma. So if I'm young enough and I'm smart enough, I'm moving out as quickly as I can. And it's not just an employment problem that's driving these young people out of Poland, out of Latvia, out of Bulgaria. It's also a housing problem. So it is really something very, very important. And the numbers are there. Latvia has 55 million, Romania has 125 million, Bulgaria has 90 million. We're talking about 3 countries in Europe. Millions and millions of square meters.
So to conclusion, basically, we don't have enough housing. The few we have is not is not in good technical condition, needs repairs, and therefore, the more we wait, and the more the building stock get deprived. I mean, what we've seen indeed: balcony already falling down, roof already falling down, heating system failing, water system failing, and so on and so on. This is to be framed even in what was the social impact of ownership. Why are we reached this situation? Why we had so much deferred maintenance in the last 20 years? It is, of course, a heritage from the system that was in place in these countries. In few years, the residential housing stock was basically privatized to the people, and it was left to them, thinking that the people would take care of their own common spaces and own buildings. And actually, 20 years or even more after, this has not happened. But on the same moment, the building have deteriorated and the maintenance was lacking. And now we have basically people that living in this building are certainly not really able to put together a proper renovation plan, a proper maintenance plan for their own building. They are actually a set of individuals which rarely they even meet and talk each other in most of the case. They have very big difficulties to organize a decision-making process, both because from one side the legal system in place is not probably the best one in place that helps the process of taking decision at building level, and from the other side, yes, the higher deprivation of the buildings makes this dialogue more and more difficult. They have basically stored 20 years of mistrust in the utilities companies which were serving them, in the house maintenance company which were maintaining the building and haven't delivered what they were supposed to deliver. They went through a number of financial crises. A lot of people lost all their savings in the banks that were in the country, so they don't have any trust in even the existing financial institution, banks. So very reluctant in taking loans for renovating their buildings. So this set of conditions certainly don't help the market for renovation to take over on leaving this responsibility to the owner of this building, at least in the countries I've been working and living so far.
If we start from the bottom, it's true anywhere that residents are afraid of change and risk averse. And we've all seen that in all of our projects. However, here we've compounded it with repeated breaks in trust, with giving people to begin with an apartment which they already personally owned. They lived in this apartment, but we gave them a negative asset. So we're starting with a very big negative capital that, in terms of behavior, in terms of acceptability, in terms of their own relationship to one another. And this must be taken into consideration in addition to the existing problems that any country has or any community has when it says, hey guys, let's do something we've never done before and we're going to make money from something that you can't see. It's called savings. So imagine the steps we have to go through.
So how do we solve this problem? In 2009, at the time I was working in a consulting company on energy efficiency, doing energy audits and technical design of projects, including renovation projects. I met this person, Eric Berman, who was mentioned by Nicolas before. He told me, Claudio, I would like to renovate this building with an energy performance contract. I want to take all this risk because I know that these people living there are not able to put together, to develop themselves a project, so I will do this for them. And the only things I will ask is give me your savings, your energy savings for the next 20 years. And well, at that point I said, well, it's crazy. It's 15 years, at the time it was 10 years I'm working in energy efficiency, and every workshop I've been doing, they told me this is not working, it's not possible, that too high transaction cost is there. But he said, well, I will still to try, I will take the risk to do it. And he went on, and this is what this company, Renesco, which is an energy service company, a single focus, is only focused on renovation multifamily building of this type, building made in series. And yes, they provide an energy performance based contract to the residents.
Here Claudio is still speaking EU speak. Energy retrofit and refurbishment. What the people care about is the fact, show the next picture, or what you see down there.
These are a number of projects. I have slides after. So what they did is the first project, a 36 flats multifamily residential building. The first one renovated. We have other examples of how it looks after and before. But I think two very important things. First of all, they were looking at deep retrofit. So this is not only a few energy efficiency measure with what today was called chocolates, sometimes it's called cherry picking by ESCO, but this goes deep into the renovation of the building. They look at the building fabrics, roof, windows and doors, space heating and domestic hot water system, balcony and loggia, which don't make energy savings, but still you cannot afford balconies falling on the head of people. Staircase entrance repair, also nothing to do with energy efficiency, but people need to take the stairs to reach their flats. A ventilation system to look very careful that the building after retrofit will still have the right number of air exchanges, and where possible and integrated in the urban planning, as well the integration of renewable energy. So this is the package they were offering, and they've been developing 15 projects today completed in Latvia based on the provision of these measures.
The package is all of this with a 20-year price tag on it. The goal is to provide a 40-year building. Why? Remember, they have no money, they have no experience. For 20 years, they have this company, Renesco, that's going to be standing by them, guaranteeing the result. Then they'll have 20 years where they get to keep the savings, minus the maintenance and maybe some improvements that go on. What does that mean? They can start putting money in their pocket again. They have an asset that they can give back to somebody else or for themselves. What happens to these buildings? As soon as the work starts, the value of any apartment goes up by 20%, number one. Number two, there's always somebody living, people want to live in those flats. So number three, because the company's with the building for the next 20 years, people start to know how to work as a team and how to ask of their service company results. Recently, one of the project managers went to a building that was renovated, I think last year, the year 07? Last year. So she came back. The first year is always like with computers. The first year, everything goes wrong. So she comes, she got 22 letters from people in the building saying, and this is wrong, and we don't like this, and we don't like that. What's happening? They're starting to know that if they say something, they get something, which is something they've given up completely on. So we're building trust and we're building accountability.
These are slides showing in brief the business model used by this company. Basically, there is the four main players, I would say, is of course the building, collectively the homeowner association. There is an house maintenance company typically existing, which is today providing a number of services for this building, from cleaning of the staircases, billing of utility service, etc. There is a heat provider. In East Europe, most of these buildings are receiving heat from a district heating company. And the new player is the ESCO. It's signed a long-term, typically 20 years contract, energy performance contract with the homeowner association. This is the contract. What happened? Well, the savings which are achieved, instead to be paid, of course, to the heat provider, will go to the ESCO. The ESCO organized fully the renovation project, so we'll have construction company contracted, equipment delivered, etc. And in this 15 building, it was as well arranging the financing of the project. So the loan in this case were taken by Renesco for the implementation of these 15 projects. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So this, and all of this going on for 20 years.
Today, 15 buildings have been finished. These buildings have been audited by KPMG out of England for the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and we'll tell you more about that in a bit.
The benefit for the residents, they're almost too good to be true sometimes, and this was one of the barriers I will list actually after. Of course, they get a renovated building, a deep renovated building, which immediately increased the real estate value. So typically, if you compare two buildings in the same neighborhood, a renovated building will have about 20% to 30% higher sale price compared to the other one. Of course, the indoor air climate is improved, so they are more comfortable. The heating system is well balanced. There is a guarantee on the indoor temperature, which is provided by the ESCO. There is a 20-year guarantee in terms of maintenance on the assets that the ESCO has installed in the building. After the 20 years, of course, all savings benefit will go to the homeowners. And they don't assume any risk in this during the contract period, as both the financial risk are on the ESCO side and the technical and performance risk are on the ESCO side. So what has been done so far? A little slide about these 15 buildings. This is asked about €4 million investment for the 15 buildings. The focus I mentioned it was on energy efficiency improvement measures. So envelope, heat distribution pipes, heat control, energy management. On the supply side, very few was done. There is basically only one building which was installed a heat pump because they had a coal boiler. All other buildings are connected to district heating, so that is still the form of heat that is supplied to this building. The level of savings it ranges from 45% to 65%. The lifetime of the building has been extended by 30 years at least. The financing was provided by a local commercial bank, 60%, in combination with a mezzanine loan provided by the Dutch housing institution, guaranteed by Dutch Housing Corporation, and this was basically, they were not collateral. The project were financing based on the energy performance contract. The weighted average cost of this combination of capitals between 5.5% and 6.5%, depending from the period in which the loans were asked and disbursed. The energy performance contract, what basically allowed to do is was set up. Basically, the homeowner are paying after the building has been renovation for the same amount of energy before renovation. So this is a very important aspect, so that the project is affordable for the house owner, so that the level of payment is not changing compared to the situation before renovation, and that will go on for the next 20 years. The investment, the simple payback, assuming this type of projects are possible as well, because in the financial plan there were subsidies provided by the Latvian government, the structural funds, which were given to the scheme. So considering this 40% about that was the level received by Renesco, the payback goes down to 9 to 10 years. Of course, without those grants, 40% grants, this type of deep renovation project today will not be possible. Do you want? No.
Go on to the next one, we'll pick up from there.
These are important slides for the what we discussed on solvability of the projects. There was an extraordinary payment discipline. Renesco had, as what is written here, zero no payment during 6 years of experience. So this energy performance contract, basically the payment from the residents is an on-bill payment. They receive it on the bill that tends to pay every month, the utility bills. And the default rate we had was basically on Renesco projects about 0%. This is linked as well to what we've seen before. The fact that they own their assets is certainly something they don't want to lose. So people keep paying their bills because they know that in the end of the day, that is the flat they're risking if they don't pay the bill. So this creates certainly a very strong possibility for on financing this sort of projects.
It's extraordinary for Westerners to hear that actually in Eastern Europe people pay their bills. The fact is, and most normal people in Eastern Europe pay their bills. 97% is what most people do in Latvia and in Bulgaria as well. However, the big difference is this zero. There is, and we have written letters from the maintenance company saying they do not expect ever any of these buildings to have any defaults. Why? Because of exactly the connection between the quality of the building and the fact that if they don't pay the bill, they will lose a very good apartment.
I will take one slide, I put it in this. This is an example of three buildings, same series. They were in the same street. This is
They're side by side.
Side by side, same series, so exactly the same type of buildings. This is the first building renovated by the ESCO. This is a building still not renovated, and this was a building renovated, organized with a different scheme, with a partial renovation organized by the flat owner, the house maintenance company. So these are the numbers which show very important aspects of this scheme. First of all, the investments were lower, meaning that certainly a professional company has better understanding of how to deal with the subcontractor, first of all, and the contractors on implementing the projects and designing the projects. Nevertheless, the investments were lower, the savings were about 30% higher. These are in terms of energy savings if we look at the total energy consumption. Why? Few reasons. For example, this building decided that the domestic hot water system should not be renovated and that there is a very high energy efficiency potential that the ESCO immediately acknowledged. And there was done very few on the heat regulation inside the flats, which was done here. So low, even though that is a low investment measure, that was not part of this package, while the ESCO, of course, was one of the priority measures they implemented. The barriers, anyway. Is this a model that can work on forever? I mean, can this ESCO keep doing project by project for long term? No, I mean, this was one of the problem. I mean, to be able to continue to attract debt financing on the balance sheet of the ESCO, this is something not sustainable for a small and medium-sized enterprise as this ESCO was. Another problem is certainly the policy that has to be around. There was a support program which helped the market to develop and then was stopped for 2 years. Is now stopped, is now restarting, and then it will stop and restart. The stop and start really are something totally not affordable for the market, in particular for small size companies. The point number 3 is as well how the energy is priced. Today, for example, in Latvia, just to tell you a little thing, one example, there is a better VAT level on energy, which is why this should be. I mean, the cross subsidies that we have still on energy cost, these are certainly not fair to who is trying to provide energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency costs 21% VAT. District heating costs 11% VAT.
was a microeconomic study done on the residential sector. Maybe, Nicholas, you can comment more on this.
This is my favorite slide in the world. The slide you need as well is to see what we're saying would be the demand. What we're saying is that you have to change behavior. So behavior starts to change very, very slowly. We have 15 buildings that were done. Maybe we get 80 done in the next 3 years and so on. So that's a tiny, tiny change. But as you start getting change in one particular place, it starts to have a cascade effect. We saw in one city, for instance, where the first building to get it to agree to do this kind of work took over 6 months, 8 months, and it was very reluctant. The first payment discipline, people were 18 weeks late paying their bills. But after the first year, they got 2 buildings much more easily. The third year, they were turning down buildings. And all those buildings, if we pinpoint them on the map, they're all within eye-shot of each other because they could see it. So this is idea is that the same thing happens here, except that we're doing it on the basis of the entire country, saying we're only going to do 70% of the 55 million square meters. And what you see is after 20 years, we're net winner, winner, winner all the way through here. This is the net. The yellow turns net. We turn net at 13. However, we look at the investment needs you need. You need over 450 million euros in year 11. So this is what we're talking. This is one of the barriers. We need to come up with a lot of cash very, very quickly, all of a sudden, if the policies are all in place. And this is where a lot of the things that were said today about being able to bundle, about being able to rely. Because the other thing we need to do is we need to do it without grant. We cannot continue to work with grant. The EU money won't be there.
So this is where we started with this project idea. For building, the target was already mentioned by Stefan before. We would like to kick off of this market to renovate in the next 3 years about 200,000 square meters based on the model we will develop by Renesco and further expanded within the Sunshine project. That meaning about 26 gigawatt hour savings a year and rising about 30 million euro investment. The stakeholders, how do we do this one? Here I put the slides before we go then more in detail to the financial scheme we intend to set up. It's important, yes, we talked today as well about standardizing the process so that we can actually really reduce what we call the transaction costs, because each of these single project is a quite small project. We are talking a project about 300,000 euro, bigger buildings, maybe €500,000. So of course, it is very important that the procedure is really standardized so that the ESCO can do it rather quickly in all the documentation, preparing all the documentation for setting up the project. So this is one of the projects we would like to, what sustains Sunshine is as well the setting up an online platform for implementing this sort of activities, of which Nicholas is one of the main promoter.
This is my baby. So basically, the idea is
indeed few minutes on this, 1 minute
short,
on
very
this.
short.
Yes.
Okay, 1 minute?
Yes.
Okay, you guys can ask me questions afterwards. The EPC platform, basically the idea is that both business processes as well as know-how are shared in a standardized way so that you can walk your way through creating your project. You have to understand, we're talking about buildings that were all built in series. I can tell you, if you give me series 607, it's got 9 floors, it's got 2 entrances, it's got 1 lift, etc. So we can start building patterns as far as what are the measures. We can also start building patterns about how do you follow the legal framework that's necessary. We can also build patterns of how to approach people in the building, because we have anthropologists, socials, anyway, people talking to other people and learning how they think and how we can work with them. The whole idea is that we have all this on a transparent basis with the history backed up, and depending on your level of closeness to the building, a level of granularity that gets smaller and smaller as you get closer and closer to the building. That's basically the idea.
In financing, the project we would like to develop in the project is basically what we call a forfeiting facility. So it's an off-balance instruments. This is indeed to enable company to develop the project, to have working capital for develop the project, but once the project is developed and proved, to have the possibility to actually sell the receivables and to basically free cash to develop further projects. In the Sunshine, we have a target to test this facility with a 10 million euro in pilot investment in this sort of refinancing facility.
So basically, lining up all the interests on the beneficiaries, meaning that everybody's documentation process follows one focus, which means at the end you have one forfeiting agreement, which is made based on the energy performance agreement, and the suppliers all have agreements which are folded in along the lines also of the energy performance contract, which means that we only have one contract to review and we only have one set of auditing to be done. And therefore the fund, when it actually says, yes, we agree, we will buy these receivables, they're doing it at a very, very low cost because so much of the auditing and the checking has been done up front.
So we are now in the phase, indeed, of setting up the fund. Is actually going to be registered probably in May, sometimes in May. The statute is under preparation, almost finished. Together with this one, in setting up this one, there is already been implemented a due diligence by the European, by the EBRD, where basically the main founding, the one which I think I prefer to see is, I mean, what they find out that there is a 32% better value for money the comparable project. So the adding energy performance contract to the scheme for renovating this type of building, it might show up a 32% better results compared to other type of models. So
for
this
the
is,
beneficiaries.
For the beneficiaries, this is in terms of the receiver of the project. And this particularly true for this sector where we've seen where the beneficiaries are not well equipped today to develop their own projects, or they don't have an institutional capacity to do so. The last slides that will go out of time and will be by briefly. They are basically how we are planning to do it in terms in brief. We have what we call a forfeiting transaction, where first of all the energy service provider sign an energy performance contract with a multifamily building.
The same as
what they are doing now. Then what I mean, he needs to implement this project. So what he can ask to the forfeiting facility, he can ask a pledge, basically a promise that he will buy the receivable if the project will match the standards we were discussing before and the level of savings which the ESCO is guaranteeing. This can help to have access to working capital. Once the project is implemented and the savings are proved, we have an assignment agreement which forfeit the energy savings. The provider keeps maintaining operational maintenance, and of course, it gets a discounted cash for all the receivable for the EPC energy performance contract.
Minus an amount for maintenance and guarantee, which is then paid to him quarterly, so we have a leash on him.
Yeah. Which is this last slide. Then once the assignment is done, of course, the cash flow from the building will flow to the forfeiting facility, which then will keep paying for high-level operational maintenance. And this is, I think, was the last one. Yeah. Thank you.
Paldies.
So we would like, I have to be strict because we would like to have time for discussion as well. This is a very interesting project, and I see the room is actually full. And I guess you have questions because this is a new project. This is funded, it's newly funded by the new Horizon 2020 Energy Efficiency Call 2014. We have here 1, Dirk, 2, and 3, and more to come.
Yeah. Can you please come back to the last slide with the forfeiting model? It's not really completely comprehensive. Who is really paying at the end to who?
It goes straight from the multifamily building, MFB.
Yeah.
Let's just see the actors, first of all. The beneficiaries, the people, the fund, the ESCO, or a service provider, and a fiduciary agent that ensures that everything is done transparently and as cheaply as possible, and the maintenance company in between as well. So, in the first step, we have the traditional ESCO situation, except that they've used all of our patterns and our business processes on the platform. Second step, they've done the work. And they've done the work after a year. We're checking 1 winter at least. We've checked that they've really done the work. It may be 2 winters in many cases because in the first winter you're adjusting everything.
But there's a discount on the earnings of the.
It's a discount on the future savings,
Yeah.
the receivables.
Yeah.
So I've signed a contract. Let me be the service provider for a minute. I've signed this EPC contract with this multifamily building.
Yeah.
And I've said to them, I guarantee you that from now on, you're not going to pay more than you paid before, and that the investment that we're going to make is this much, and that for the next 20 years, there'll be this financial cost. Then I go to La Bif. Actually, I'm doing it all on the platform, which is actually informing me how much it's going to really cost me. And they say to me, okay, we'll discount this. 84% of this we will discount at this discount rate. Let's say 5%. Let's say 3%, which is what I'm aiming for. So then a year goes by, or maybe two, depending, and automatically, they've reached their goals. Automatically, the forfeiting agreement enters into force. So La Bif pays the money to the service provider or directly to their bank for the working capital, and they get to keep the rest of it.
So after 2 years with a discount of 10, 20% or?
No, much lower than that.
No.
But this is where we are still negotiating with people like EBRD of what it should be.
My name is Dirk van Sint-Jan from the Renewable Energy Cooperatives. What happens if people living there have money and want to invest?
Even better. No problem.
It's possible.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just the financing piece of it. But they can use the whole process.
I mean, translated even more, I mean, we don't pretend to be the unique solution for all the problem. I mean, if there are buildings which are able to, and they are, I mean, not all, they are buildings that can set up their own projects. If they have the money, they can finance on their own, and they can make their own very good renovation. So this doesn't pretend to be a solution for every single multifamily building in East Europe, but I'm sure that we have certainly, the market is so big that this will be part of the solution to a very big problem in the housing sector.
And the reason for the platform being transparent is to provide anybody else with the information of what it's costing so that they can make benchmark. What we want to create is benchmarking, because there's so many different, everybody's making the same mistakes. Again, every builder starts from scratch. Let's share the information. For instance, those two buildings, Gaia's 13 and 11. Gaia's 13, they used a silicone-based paint. The other guys used a slightly cheaper paint. 5 years later, Gaia's 13 looks new, Gaia's 11 already has mold on it. So it's those kind of things. Not to criticize Valmera, the maintenance company. It's just, hey, we've learned something. This paint does not last long enough. And the difference in cost is low.
Thank you. Do you see any reason why this scheme could not also be used for public buildings? First question. You do? Okay. And secondly, is there any reason why it cannot be used in other countries in Europe?
It's definitely, it's called La Bif because the EBRD wants it to be Latvian Baltic Energy Efficiency Fund. But yes, that's the whole idea.
Lawrence Herrmann, Berlin Energy Agency.
Yeah.
Two very short questions, one a bit more strategic. First, have there been modernization, deposits or savings by the owners which could be used for the modernization? Second, how large are the majorities needed in the association to make this decision to enter an EPC? And the last question would be, the situation is very specific in Eastern Europe with similar buildings, with low standard. How do you see transferability to, say, Western European countries? It's quite different playing field, I imagine.
Well, one of my ex-colleagues will be making his presentation, which was very similar to ours. There's certain buildings, I think, in Birmingham, north of Paris, and other areas where it's probably the same, all inspired by Monsieur Le Corbusier. I think we have enough work in Eastern Europe anyway. It is over 1 billion square meters. We don't know exactly how much is out there because some of it is getting broken down. But just on our side of the world, number one. Number two, the majority is 50 plus 1. Number one, there's no disposable income. That's why we have to guarantee that at least it's going to cost the same as, or maybe a tiny bit less, or a little bit tiny more. If we can do 5% less, that's what people really want. Yeah.
Eric van Achman from Factor 4. How do you deal with changes in the energy price? Who takes the risk?
In the Renesco project, the risk of energy price is on the house owners. If the price goes up, then the bills goes up, linked to the energy price. So the energy performance contract is indexed to the energy price. This is of course a risk that stays with them. But this is part of what we promise. You will pay for the same amount of energy you were consuming before, than the cost which is supplied in future. So if it goes down, also the cost goes down.
Thank you very much. I have two very short questions and one comment. The first, I will start with the comment. This project is very important, extremely important, because in all ex-socialist countries we have the same problem. We have the same buildings in Bulgaria which need very urgent renovation. But the problem is how to be organized. This is an excellent solution. Unfortunately, in Bulgaria, the government wasn't able to find such a market-based solution, and probably you know, but I would like to inform you that the government will spend about 500 million euro for subsidizing similar renovation projects in multifamily buildings, prefabricated multifamily buildings, because they urgently need a renovation. And some differences probably which are crucial why this model will be implemented not so easy in Bulgaria. The first one, in Bulgaria, every individual household has an individual account for electricity and for heating. Also, every family can control the heating consumption individually, which makes the things very difficult, because if you switch off all radiators of the apartment, the savings will be zero. Nobody can calculate how many radiators will be switched on for one moment. So this makes the things very difficult. Probably in Latvia, every apartment is...
Merci. You're right. You're right. But because we're colleagues from the same country. You're right, and it is a difficult problem for both, especially if we can't control. We consider a building as a unity. We're saying you cannot start saying you pay more, you pay less. And we won't get into all the complexities of that. But yes, that may be a problem. But let's get there. Maybe we can find a solution.
No, but this is not clear. I mean, just to be, I mean, this is the issue that we face actually in the whole Eastern Europe, and this is right. We have multiple ownership issue because all the apartments have been privatized, and there's so it means in whatever 20-story buildings we have 20,000 owners.
Yeah.
It's just another issue. If we deal with the social housing, that's what we could do. We finance one we finance one entity, and this entity is actually controlling all the payments.
Yes.
But in this case, I don't understand how this then works. Who is actually, if you have 20,000 multiple ownerships, how do you get all these payments collected?
Because it's a utility bill. It continues to be the same heating bill as they were getting before.
Yeah.
So first of all, there's two advantages. One, it means they continue using the same payment process they've used before. Secondly, there's no need for collateral, for document filling out. It's the same thing. You sign a protocol that you agree to give this ESCO the right on your behalf to do the deep renovation of your building, and that from then on, this bill will be coming via this ESCO or in parallel, and it will receive, you'll have your heat and you'll have your savings. And that's all. It's very novel, in Latvia, it's working because of the courage of the original team. And what we think is that, for instance, because it starts to work in Latvia, another country, let's say Lithuania, which is hiding somewhere over there it is, will, for instance, attempt it, and then we'll have two countries. The same thing as I showed you for the energy. We're not saying, hey, let's go to Bulgaria and do this tomorrow. Let's demonstrate that it works, let's modify it as it needs, and then let's show it to other places.
Yeah, but I mean, I as a owner then sign up from the very beginning for the savings that actually you say they will be verified after 1.5 years. So what this model is saying, then you reduce the bill, and I say, okay, from this bill I pay whatever, 20% less, and actually without knowing whether these guys will be able to...
Where are you from in Eastern Europe?
I'm from Moscow. I mean, this is the same, but I...
There you go. No, wonderful.
But
No,
I mean,
I'm just shocked because
the
you're
same-
reacting exactly like an owner would. Actually,
But
no,
it's
you're
the
not
same
taking
issue
any
that I'm
risk.
facing as a financier
Yeah.
with all this social housing
Yeah.
projects.
Lada,
that's-
you're
that's the
you're not
same.
having any risk whatsoever. The execution risk
Yeah.
stays with the ESCO. They got the short-term loan from the bank. They screw up. You're in a situation where whatever they did, they did. You may have to sue them to finish, maybe, but
Yeah.
you're not in danger.
Yeah, no,
Neither
no,
is the
no.
fund. Okay, that's one of the big differences. Go ahead.
I have 3 more questions. We have 1, 2, 3 more questions. We want to get to coffee break, but I think
I just want to stress this. Lada brought up a very important point. We have separated the execution risk from the payment risk. We're saying the execution risk belongs to the ESCO, not to the beneficiaries. Therefore, they should be responsible. Once they've proven they've done their job, now it's a payment risk. Now it's your responsibility as an owner to pay up. But until then, it's not your responsibility.
Hello, Renata Domavichini, Minister of Finance of Lithuania. Labadiena. I wanted to ask you about RDF supporting scheme, because at this moment we also have Jessica on 2007 and 2014, and I would like to know how Latvia managed and for support for housing, because
Can we have that
we're on
conversation at the coffee
similar
break?
way.
That's a Latvian-Lithuanian conversation. Let's do it at the coffee break. I think, but people who have not asked.
Okay, good afternoon. Elena Cattani from University of Bologna. I was interested in the relationship between the ESCO and the construction company. Do they take all the risk? Do they take care of all the construction process? And have you worked with one ESCO? Have you worked with many? How did you... And short, many problem with the inhabitants, or they were all on board?
Oh, they're so on board. Lada can tell you.
No, well, regarding the subcontractor, no, the full responsibility of the project is on the ESCO side, which indeed does as well the project supervision on the construction work and the project management during the development phase. So this relationship is, yes, is between the ESCO and subcontractors, being it an installation company, a plumbing company, or construction companies. And I could tell you that when the first subcontractor of ESCO, they were crying often by the strict supervision they were not used to. For the first time in their life, they had to put down insulation which was already stick because it was not complying with the standards, while in other cases would be left like this. So this is really where, if you put it in the hand of on ESCO, which means has a 20 years contract, the supervision they will put on the project is certainly is the key of their success. I mean, they cannot make mistakes there, otherwise they will have to live for 20 years reduced performances.
And in the future, the evolution that I see of the relationships is that to start requiring of these companies the same kind of guarantees as these guys are giving to those guys. That's that's for the time being. You can't but you can't even add these guys. You say give me a guarantee of 1 day. They're like ha ha ha. So no, it's a process.
This relationship is very difficult also. I mean, to have a room like this, suppose this is the General Assembly of a meeting, and to get out a 51% vote, it takes a lot of time, a lot of trust. If you speak individually to people, all of them will agree probably on the renovation, or most of them. When you put it together, is enough 1 or 2 persons will start to say, well, but what it is this one? No, it's not true, we don't trust you, and so on, which will delay a lot the process. But what was mentioning, I mean, the first project might take even 8 months in convincing and working with the building. The next one are much easier in the neighborhood. then they start to come even to you to ask for your services. Of course, if you have shown your results in your performances on the field. So that is how it has to be developed. No, these are today currently we've been working with one ESCO is Renesco, which was part of the due diligence for setting up the first transaction of the fund. Currently in Sunshine, there are 2 additional ESCO to Renesco, which are going to try to replicate the same model. Already now, recently in one workshop you organized in Latvia, we have seen 2 additional companies which would like to use the same business model to renovate building in Latvia also. Yeah.
And one last, the very, very important thing I didn't say is the district heating companies have to be brought on board. Lada, there again, you'll understand that part. And we actually have one ESCO, which is actually a district heating company that has been mandated by its municipality to start working in renovation under the energy performance contracting model.
So we have to stop here. We have too bad. We have a 20 minutes, still a 20 minutes coffee break, so you can ask them. I just want to remind you, this project is funded by Horizon 2020.
Thank you, Horizon 2020.
Thank you. The last project was financed by Intelligent Energy Europe. So you see a continuation. The projects continue to being funded. So it's a similar project. And just for information, on the 4th of June, we have another call deadline. So if you're interested in this kind of project, have a look at the website. We are looking for good projects. So we see you again at 1600 here in this room when we look at public buildings. Thank you.